Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to What is America to You? I'm your host, Derek Dempsey, and I'm coming at you from New York. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel, What is America to You? We really need those right now. And give us a like, no thumbs down. Also, keep commenting. We love the comments. We always respond, Jessica, right?
Absolutely,
always.
yeah.
And also, we just became a podcast. We're going to officially announce it, and it'll probably be after this broadcast. But just do a Google search, What is America to You? Podcasting, you'll find it everywhere. Okay. Our next guest has had his songs sung by Sandie Shaw, the Bay City Rollers, Cliff Richard, the Dubliners, Montevani, Joe Dolan, the Furies and Davy Arthur, Richard Harris, Sinead O'Connor, Luke Kelly, George Harrison of the Beatles,
Oh, yeah.
and the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. That's just incredible. His refusal to accept an OBE sat very well with people who felt a deep empathy within his songs, particularly his famous song about County Derry in the Troubles. However, his accepted awards include 23 platinum discs, 39 gold discs, 52 silver discs, 2 Grand Prix Eurovision awards, 5 Ivor Novello awards, 3 American Society of Composers gongs. All this in addition to a Grammy nomination and many honorary university doctorates. Incredible. So if the song "Happy Birthday to You, Happy Birthday" ever retires, I think it's in need of a retirement personally.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
His song "Congratulations and Jubile," that will take its place naturally. It's about time. So without further ado, it's a great pleasure to introduce to you Phil Coulter. Welcome to What is America to You? How are you doing?
I'm very well, Derek, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. It's great for us to have you here, and let's get straight into it. I'm going to ask you about, since the lockdown, you've been performing what seems like 10 plus shows from your virtual lockdown lounge a week. It's an unbelievable schedule, and I know that you have Up Close and Personal with Phil Coulter live stream, which goes, if I'm right, from October 1st to 3rd. Could you tell us a bit about that and what inspired you to start doing that within the lockdown, and where we can get the tickets, please?
Well, first of all, the lockdown lounge came out of just that period of like one Groundhog Day following another Groundhog Day, and the small weekend giving way to the big weekend. When in the first few months of lockdown here, I was in that vulnerable group, the 70s plus. So we were cocooning. So strictly speaking, I wasn't supposed to leave my property at all. Just like the most I could do was potter about in the garden. That was probably the hardest period, Derek, because it was all a blur. It was just a blur. And in fact, as I said at the time, I began to be very grateful in the morning for my pillbox, because that told me what day of the week it was. That's the only way I could differentiate one from the other. So after, when the reality dawned that our business had just fallen off the edge of a cliff, after a number of weeks of just wondering what the repercussions were, at the encouragement of some of the younger guys on my team, they pointed out that the only way to keep a presence, keep a profile with my fans, my believers, my followers, would be online. So we started the Lockdown Lounge. Every Saturday we do a live stream, 30, 40 minutes, where I play a few tunes, tell a few stories, read from my memoir. And then through the week, we'll drop a couple of tracks as well. That just gives me a structure in my week. It gives me something to do rather than sitting about feeling sorry for myself and blaming everybody from the government to the Chinese. That's not the way. If you're a grown up, you have to say, well, life goes on, and I have to adapt. So, as I say, as an old dog, I just had to learn some new tricks. So the lockdown got me into that whole social media thing. And the next development, the next step up from about 10 or 12 weeks of doing that, in the course of which we had something like over 1 million hits, which persuaded me that there's an audience there are believers out there over and above my own hardcore fans who have been very loyal to me for God knows how many years. So the next stage was to do, apart from the kind of casual thing of the lockdown nights, to actually do a live stream concert. And I figured, well, if I'm going to do that, rather than doing it from my front room or my kitchen on an iPhone or whatever, what I'm going to do is do it properly. Either do it properly or don't do it at all. So on the 3rd of October, we're doing a live stream from a lovely little theatre in County Meath, in Ratoath in County Meath, venue that we've played a number of times. And we've reconfigured the theatre. Because of the COVID restrictions, numbers are very strict, of course. So they've reconfigured it. They have 10 tables of 4 each, 40 people in the auditorium. But I've never played to such a small people. I mean, I think I've had more people in my house for many parties, but be that as it may. So on the Thursday and Friday, we're just playing the live concert just to get back in the game. And then on the Saturday, we're doing the up close and personal. We're live streaming that. Now, it's a first for me, but I'm determined to give it a good shot because it's a proper theatre, stage, set, lighting, multi-cameras, all the business. So it's going to be proper. It's going to be proper. I just hope it all works. I don't know, but it's historic for me, and I'm jumping in the deep end.
Well, like you've reinvented yourself since 1962, when I think you began in the business with Fooling Time, and it amazes me that in 1962 there were no iPhones, there were no faxes, there were no nothing. You made telephone calls, you had an office in London, whatever it was. You recorded, you had an acetate, you put it out there, and it was done, and you had to have trucks bringing stuff around. You might have been able to send a letter, maybe, or a phone call internationally. Can you believe that? If you could go back to that man you were at 62, could you believe you're basically using what amounts to science fiction right now compared to 1962? It's incredible.
It's a new world. It's an absolutely different world. Our business has changed radically from the ground up. Starting from the writing of songs, the recording of songs, the publishing of songs, the selling of records. I mean, there are no record stores anymore. There are not there's not the structures within music that there used to be. I mean, I consider myself, Derek, very fortunate that I learned my trade in the 60s in Tin Pan Alley in Denmark Street in London. That was the reality of learning the craft of being a songwriter. There's no such thing as a born songwriter. It's a craft you have to learn. There's no such thing as being a born silversmith. That's a craft that he has to study and learn how to work with the silver and create things. You have to learn to work with your raw materials. So the talent is one thing. The application is another thing. The talent only gets you in the game. It's the hard work on the application that keeps you there and hopefully progresses you in the game. So I consider myself to be very, very fortunate that I was in Denmark Street, Tin Pan Alley, surrounded by other aspiring songwriters. And we were all punching in those same hours, trying to get records recorded. Our deal, for example, was that Martin and Coulter, my partner, Bill Martin, every second Friday, we went into the little studio in the basement of Keith Prowse Music to record 6 new songs, to demo 6 new songs. That's words, music, and an arrangement with an in-house 4 or 5 piece band. So that's a good average of a new song every couple of days, finished and perfected. Now, the following Monday, then, we would take those songs in and play them to our publisher, Jimmy Phillips. As often as not, he would throw them in the bin.
You said Jimmy Phillips was a mentor. He mentored songwriters, you said.
That's exactly right. That's another thing that's missing in the business today. Aspiring songwriters, to a large extent, are left to their own devices. They don't have mentors. Music publishers in those days were mentors like Jimmy Phillips. They would teach aspiring songwriters where they were going wrong. And, you have to learn. You have to be taught. You have to learn the craft, as I say. Nobody's doing that anymore. Songwriters are learning by trial and error, right. That's why there are more badly crafted songs now than there are well-crafted songs.
I'm so glad you said that, because it leads me into the next question. But there's a million things I could say, but there's 2 types of songwriters to me. What you just said, a crafted song, a composed song. And then there's people who make up melodies over chords. I'm not going to mention any bands or any artists, but there's a huge distinction between a composition and the likes of Puppet on a String is a composition. That's a composition. Whereas again, I'm not going to mention other artists, but your songs are locked in in the great Irish songbooks with the likes of Van Morrison, Phil Lynott, Pete St. John, Liam Riley, Jimmy McCarthy. I mean, the list goes on there. I wonder, did the Great American Songbook influence your songwriting, and did American music in general influence you? It's kind of a two-part question. And secondly, have you been inspired to compose new music during the lockdown?
Well, the answer to both questions is yes, very much so. I mean, if you're going to be a songwriter, you have to study the Great American Songbook. I mean, America invented pop music. I mean, going right back to Stephen Foster, for God's sake. I mean, Stephen Foster. I was being interviewed a year or so ago, and I was asked to nominate my influential songwriter, and I said Stephen Foster. Much to the amazement of the interviewer. Well, Stephen Foster is often regarded as the father of the American popular song. That little 3-minute jam, I Dream of Jeannie with a light brown hair, beautiful dreamer, hard times around my cabin door. I mean, these are little 3-minute jams where the music and the lyrics just fit so perfectly together. Now, it's only when you try to recapture that kind of simplicity that you realize just how difficult it is. So from Stephen Foster right through to Rodgers and Hammerstein, right through the 30s and the 40s, right up to the pop era. And if you're going to be a pop songwriter and coming through in the 60s, the late 50s and 60s as I was, you had to study Goffin and King and Lieber and Stoller and Greenwich and Barry and Neil Sedaka. All those guys who were sitting in the little offices in the Brill building, turning out songs. That was the backbone of the Great American Songbook. And of course, absolutely, that was a big influence, because they were the guys who were doing it best and had been doing it and did it first. So your next question, in the lockdown, have I been inspired to write? Well, just as the live stream thing is a challenge for me, and it's something fresh that I have to learn from. In songwriting, I have been co-writing recently with who I consider to be two of the most talented and most gifted of the young breed of songwriters in Ireland. They are the two songwriters from Picture This, which is our hottest band at the minute. They just sold out 5 nights in the O2, the big arena here, and we're due to tour America, I think, with Niall Horan. These guys are being touted as a new U2. What I liked about their records, what I liked about their repertoire, songs. These guys can write songs that have a melody, that a lyric, and a shape to them. So I've been writing with those two. I mean, they're like kind of 24, 25 years of age, each of them. But they can maybe learn from me, and I can learn from them.
They definitely can learn from you. And listen, when you said about songwriting, I love the Great American Songbook. I mean, Cole Porter, the simplest example is major to minor. That is songwriting, when the lyrics, as you say, fit the melody. But I don't know what you think of George Michael. I think George Michael was an incredible songwriter, and one of the great examples for me, and it's the same that you do on Puppet on a String, and Congratulations. I mean, Congratulations had to be da-da-da-da. It couldn't be anything else but that. But George Michael in Careless Whisper, at the beginning he sings the lyric, I feel so unsure. It's genius what he does there. He stutters the lyric, I feel so unsure, and he sings the melody in an unsure way. That's songwriting to me. Yeah. Again, that might be a little esoteric, but it does bring me around to Scorn, Not His Simplicity. It's first of all, it's a beautiful song. As I said, it's such a tender, respectful song dealing with the subject of Down syndrome. And many people sing it. Sinead O'Connor, and of course the Dubliners, Luke Kelly sang it. But I've heard you singing it, and the line in the song where you go, "Only he knows how to face the future, hopefully, comma, surrounded by despair." That line, I sing the song, and I've always found that to be the hardest line to get correctly. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying there?
Sure. No, I know I know exactly what you're saying, and the reason for the pause is it's because it's two separate. Really, I think that the emphasizing of the despair. I mean, and that is until you learn, until you. I mean, I was only my early 20s when my son Paul was born, and to be honest, I found it very hard to come to terms with it. My wife was much more mature about the whole thing, but I think women generally are in these kind of situations anyway. And it took me quite a bit of time to come to terms with it and to accept that it had happened, and to get over that feeling of despair when you hear that your second-born child has Down syndrome. Of course, the roof falls and the sky falls, and you think it's the end of the world. And that's the kind of despair bit about it. But then, you learn to accept, you learn to adapt, and you learn to see what in many ways it's a gift from God. If you're going to have an experience of a physically or mentally challenged child, I think a Down syndrome is probably one of the best deals you can get.
I agree, and I have a friend, Jack Lee, in Manchester, who's Down syndrome, and he's so positive. He's like, he works out, and he's the coolest guy, and he dresses great. He smells like he came out of GQ magazine. And my niece, Hazel, who I want to say hello to, she's also Down syndrome. But I think we've come around to seeing them different. We've caught up with these beautiful human beings, I think, on the planet, rather than the other way around. And that makes all the difference,
I think you're absolutely right. I grew up in an era when one of the families across the street had a Downs kid. And this is the truth. I mean, it's a shameful thing to say, but when the neighbours would be kind of walking down the street and this woman would be coming with a little Downs kid in the pram, they would nearly cross to the other side of the street. They were kind of locked away. It was regarded as something shameful, and something that should be hidden away and not talked about. And we've certainly turned that on its head, Derek. We're far more open about all of that now. And one of the reasons I wrote the song, was to say, look, this has happened, and it happened to me, and this is the reality. It's a song which, through the years, of all of my songs, I think that's a song that has provoked a more steady and continuous reaction from people. To this day, I get emails from people who've had the experience of a mentally or physically challenged child and who've discovered Scorn autism simplicity for the first time and want to write to tell me how they can identify it and how, they got something from the song. So for that reason, it continues to be one of my own favourite songs.
Okay, so we got to get back, of course, to the lockdown in a minute. But I wanted to say to you also, your father was a minority Catholic in the RUC, and I'd imagine that must have instilled very strong empathy in youth towards minorities everywhere, but particularly in Derry and particularly in the times of the Troubles, which, of course, led to the great honest message in the town I love so well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I grew up in that period when Catholics in the north of Ireland were very much the second-class citizens. We were the hewers of wood and the drawers of water. We were denied jobs, we were denied houses and denied voting rights. And there was a kind of a blind acceptance of that, and it wasn't really until the late 50s, 60s, with the advent of the likes of John Hume and the SDLP, who were able to enunciate in a clear way what the grievances were. One of the key dates, Derek, was there was an Education Act which came in the late 40s, introduced by the Labour government, which opened up third-level education, university education, to scholarship in the north of Ireland. And that enabled people like John Hume, like Austin Curry, like Seamus Heaney, or like myself, to get to university. And that produced a generation of people, including John Hume, Austin Curry, who were able to argue the case and to enunciate the grievances of the minority in the north of Ireland very forcibly. That was the start of a chain reaction that has brought it to where we are today.
Brilliant. And of course, John Hume just passed away recently.
He was one of my close friends. He was in class in St. Columns. He was in class with my eldest brother, Father Joe. So he was, in his teenage years, he was as often knocking about our house as he was in his own. So we were friends down through the years. And in fact, at his funeral, as they were taking the remains out of the cathedral and down the aisle, I just quietly on the piano played The Town I Love So Well as a farewell to John. And it was very poignant. I wasn't thinking of John Hume, the statesman then. I was thinking of John Hume, my buddy, the John Hume who we had sung The Town I Love So Well as a duet on so many occasions. Normally, it has to be said after a feed and drink. in many locations, from like little pubs in Donegal to the White House to the Nobel Peace Awards. But that's the John Hume I was
Right, right. Brilliant. You know what we're going to do, Phil? We're going to play a video. Okay, this video is Phil performing with the High Kings, and the song is called Thank God That Was My Life.
I have lived and I have loved, and I have had my failed romances, taken all that life can give, and taken my fair share of chances. I've known just how it is to win, and I have felt the pain of losing. Some paths I chose would end in tears, but they were all of my own choosing. It's been a good life, far from the high life, and I thank God that this was my life. Some days I prayed would never end, but there were days I felt like screaming. Through the darkness and the tears, nothing could ever stop my dreaming. It's been a good life, far from the high life, and I thank God that this was my life. I've known contentment in a lover's arms, and felt the warmth of her devotion, and I've known heartache, dark despair that was as deep as any ocean. But we get the chance to carry on and build a life of our own making. I thank the Lord for each new day and for every breath that I am taking. The sweetness and the sorrow, they've made me what I am today, and I'd do it all again tomorrow. It's been a good life, far from the high life, and I thank God that this was my life. We can't deny life, how it flies by, life. And I thank God that this was my life.
That was great. That was Phil performing with the High Kings, and of course the song was called "Thank God This Was My Life." Okay, so we're gonna coming close to wrapping it up here with the great Phil Coulter. By the way, I met Bill Martin a couple of years ago. We had great stories to tell me for 2 hours in a bar in Times Square. Great stories. I'd love to get into them now, but we'd be here all day.
Yeah. Well, I guarantee you, Derek, most of them were live.
So, speaking of which, your hit "Foolin' Time" was your first taste of songwriting success. Then came "Puppet on a String," congratulations, and of course "My Boy." And then after that, then there was the phenomenon of the Tranquility albums, which sold huge. But before all that international success, you paid your dues. You did your apprenticeship, which you spoke about earlier on. Do you feel that today's stars with the idols and the talent shows, one, do you feel as if they're missing out on that and to their own detriment? And I guess that's probably the question.
Yeah, because my heroes, the people that I respect in the music industry, would be those who have endured. You know, I would say like Paul Simon, James Taylor, Mark Knopfler, those guys, Tom Waits, Randy Newman, guys who are still doing it, and who have learned their craft and have paid their dues. and have spent all of those years kind of honing their craft. Now, I was at an awards ceremony last year, and it was the PRS, and they were giving awards to the most performed song, and one of the awards, I think it was the most performed, the pop song of the year, and 12 guys went on stage to pick up the award. 12. I mean, one of my friends at the table, another of my songwriting friends said, "I think the guy at the end is the goalkeeper."
That's fucking brilliant.
Just getting back to what you were saying earlier, that it doesn't take 10 guys to write a song. It really does. To me, that's not a song. That's a collaboration of somebody doing the beats, somebody doing the top line, somebody doing a lyric, somebody. I mean, that's a bit of a mishmash.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I mean, the only time I've ever seen that was with some of the Motown Corporation. You see a lot of names in some of the songs, but I think that was to do with business. But ultimately, I think you're 100% right. I was talking to Roy Buckley. Of course, you do a lot of stuff with Roy. I think Roy is a great up-and-coming songwriter. I love his song, "The Old Man on Patrick Street."
I do. I think Roy's a lot to give. I also think that Roy is. I have christened Roy the last of the great balladeers. There are so few of the young guys singing that material. And I mean, I love Roy dearly, and I love what he does. I love his commitment. I love his energy, and I love his authenticity. And apart from anything else, Roy Buckley is like a Phil Coulter jukebox.
He's unbelievable.
He knows every song I ever wrote, and it's just press the button and he'll go straight into it. So that's another reason why I like him so much.
Well, you said integrity and honesty, and I was only chatting to him the other day there, and brief story, take me 30 seconds to tell you. I saw him on a post doing Roll Back the Clouds, Christy Hennessy, and I can tell in a couple of seconds whether a singer has integrity and honesty. Just can. And I listened three lyrics in, and I wrote, this guy is an honest singer. I didn't know who he was. And that's how we made the connection. And we've been friends ever since. And thanks, Roy, that you asked Phil to come on. And thanks, Phil, for coming on. So before we go, we have two things. One, we have to get back to Up Close and Personal with Phil Coulter. We're going to blast that out there to people. We're going to make sure they know where to get the tickets. And do you have any guests that are going to be performing with you at that?
Yes. My wife, Geraldine Brannigan, who was a star before I became a performer at all. And she, when we tour now, Geraldine, now that our 6 kids are raised, Geraldine tours with me now, and it's been great. We about 5, 6, 7 years ago, we did a run of 6 weeks in the Irish Repertory Theatre in New York, which was one of the great adventures of my entire career. So Geraldine is one, and one of my great discoveries from Derry, called George Hutton, is another one. So it's the Up Close and Personal is going to be a full-on concert with all the bells and whistles. So I mean, it's a new adventure for me, Derek, and my fear is that a lot of my fans are just not used to that thing of going online to buy a ticket to see a virtual concert. So we have to try and educate them that they go online and click the hook.
Well, listen, I think the history of this it'll be a roaring success, because there's a great saying: if you want to know what somebody's going to do tomorrow, have a look at what they did yesterday. And you've been doing things new for many, many yesterdays, yesteryears, and yesterdecades. There's no doubt it'll be a success. And we said it here on What Is America to You with Phil Coulter. So, Phil, before you go, I know you're a busy man. We're going to run through the Proust. I never say that name right. The Proust questionnaire. So it's a bit of fun. First question: what is your perfect idea of happiness, Phil Coulter?
To be at a dinner table with all of my kids, eating a roast lamb and a good bottle of 1966 Chateau Cheval Blanc red wine.
What is your greatest achievement?
To have brought 9 kids into this world.
Charlie Chaplin also did that. What is your greatest extravagance?
Motor vehicles.
What is your current state of mind?
Resignation.
What do you consider the most overrated virtue?
Modesty.
I love it. What is the quality you most like in a person?
Dependability.
Which words or phrases do you most overuse?
Absolutely.
So do I. What do you most value in your friends?
Loyalty.
Which historical figure do you most identify with?
The Great O'Neill.
The Great O'Neill.
Hugh O'Neill, the Great O'Neill. He was the great chieftain who cobbled together all of the Irish chieftains and came very close to defeating the English, except for the Battle of Kinsale. He was a great visionary, probably the greatest Irish man ever.
I like that where you say came close to defeating the English. We won't get into that now. Okay, another day. Our last question is the title of our show. Phil Coulter, what is America to you?
America has been very good to me. It was always somewhere which fascinated me. When I was able, I lived there for a couple of years out in LA. I've toured I've played in every state in the union. I've found it to be always. I always get the feeling of great opportunity, feeling of the celebration of success, not begrudgery.
Phil, that I love all your answers there, and the snappiest of answers too. You're the quickest ever. Listen, we can't thank you enough for coming on our show, and we will we'll send you a link, and we will put links up to your up close and personal with Phil Coulter. We wish you the best of luck with the show. We know it's going to be a roaring success. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. My pleasure, Derek. Been a pleasure chatting to you, and you're somebody who knows the game, who's got the passion for the game, and you've done your homework on Phil Coulter. So all the more to be enjoyed. Thank you. I've enjoyed your company a lot.
And likewise, Phil. Thank you. That was just great, Phil Coulter. That was brilliant. I mean, it's such a humble and gracious. It's like just talking to a guy down the road. Yeah, absolutely. And we had a quick chat with him beforehand, and you're just checking, are we okay to talk about this? He's like, don't worry about it, just fire away. I'm not one of those. I'm not fussed. Incredible. Okay, so don't forget Phil Coulter. Up close and personal with Phil Coulter, October 1st to 3rd. Live stream. We're going to post beneath here the link. We'll probably put it in the video as well, so you've probably seen it at this stage. And where you can get tickets, tune in. It's going to be a success. We're going to tune in, of course, aren't we?
Yes.
I think with popcorn and other things.
Absolutely, yeah.
That was just brilliant. Okay, look, I could go on forever about that, and I could interview Phil again. Maybe we will. So that's the end of our show. Coming up soon, we have Joni Madden from Cherish the Ladies. A few of the guests that we will announce soon, and in October we release a great interview we did with Michael Musto, because October is Gay History Month, so it's an important month, and it's a special interview edition for Gay Month. Okay. That is the end of the show. I am going to stop talking right now, but before I stop talking, from Jessica, making it all happen, looking beautiful behind the camera, and from me, your host, Derek Dempsey, what is America to you? Goodbye for now.
Driving along, minding my own business, heading east through the Kentucky rain. There on the radio, Johnny Cash was singing. I hurt myself just to see if I still feel pain.